This is your summer reading lecture for Frankenstein. This is designed to be listened to and viewed prior to your taking the summer reading test. Now, the summer reading test is going to be Wednesday, so you want to make sure that you do take the opportunity to go through. Now, what I do when I prepare these lectures is I make notes. So you have a variety of things that I want you to be able to pay attention to, talk about, be able to write about when you do the test, when you write the essay, because you got a lot of work coming up this week. You've got an initial essay assignment due at the end of the week, right around mini class night. You have a test on Wednesday. Now, those two assignments alone, aside from the quizzes I might give you this week, are designed to make sure that you have a good base for your grades. So if you've done the summer reading, if you've paid attention, you should be overall in good shape. So let's start. When I go through and I look at my resources here, this book here, Frankenstein, this is the copy that I've read and that I've used forever with my classes at U of D Jesuit. You'll notice that the picture on the front is from a painting called Traveler Looking Over a Sea of Fog. This is an excellent version because it also has a very good introduction written by Diane Johnson, which talks about the narrative voices, the three people, the Robert Walton, the Victor Frankenstein, and the monster, and why all three pieces of the story are so important. The central theme of this book is the pursuit of unnecessary knowledge. This allows me to talk about the conflict between emotion and logic, which is a big British romanticist idea. It's a conflict that we're going to see over and over again during this particular period of time. The other text is this version here. This is one that we've used in this school in the last couple of years. Really, any version is pretty good as long as it's the 1818 version, so that you have the same context as I do. If you read a hypertext version of this particular book, that's fine for me also. You'll be in good shape if you just pay attention and do what you need to do. Now, I started by saying that this is a British Romanticist novel. Now, this puts us right in the mid-19th century, really 1820s to about 1850. Major players are Samuel Taylor Coleridge, William Wordsworth. You've got Percy Shelley. The name should sound familiar because he's married to Mary Shelley. That creates a whole bunch of other conflict. I'm going to talk about those things in class. We also know that Mary Shelley was tremendously well read. So you're going to find that the references to John Milton in Paradise Lost, the monster reads when he's at the DeLacy cottage, the references to The Sorrows of Young Werther, the quote from the Rime of the Ancient Mariner where it talks about Victor Frankenstein and his haunted sort of persona that he has after he's created the monster. All these things are extraordinarily relevant. So pay attention. I've mentioned 3 or 4 major literary influences on Mary Shelley. SparkNote should walk you through these. I'm going to spend some time on them in class. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have a lot of time to cover them prior to the summer reading test. It's a lot of what we do after the test and in preparation for your essays. So this should, again, help you prepare for those materials. So major characteristics of Romanticism. Sophomores, I give them 10 different examples. I'm going to limit you now to 4, and I think they're extraordinarily important 4. There are more, and of course the other 6 play a significant role, but for this time, the 4 major ones, I say number 1 is values, intuition, and feeling over reason. This is the idea that the power of the imagination for the Romanticists, and Mary Shelley, Victor, and the monster, is far more important than logic. The science doesn't have to make sense. And you're going to find in this novel that the science really doesn't work. So we just use galvanism or electricity and lightning hitting a tree early in the novel to inspire Victor Frankenstein. Then he creates the monster, and it awakens in chapter 4 with the yellow eye and those things. But Victor then says, I'm not going to tell you how I did it. Just lets Mary Shelley off the hook, so she doesn't have to tell us. But the first trait is that Romanticism values feeling and intuition over reason. Again, this allows us as readers to say, okay, I can suspend my imagination here, or suspend my disbelief is the term, and then go through and say, okay, I can buy this and it makes sense. The second major trait is that it places faith in inner experience and the power of the imagination. Romanticism does. So all events are going to be driven by the inner experience, what you feel in your heart. Victor Frankenstein, as he says at the end of chapter 1, what Elizabeth is given to him, he felt that she was his forever, for him to take care of until the moment that she, or ironically, he dies. So again, that's important. That second trait also says it's also about the power of the imagination. So the power of the imagination, what Victor Frankenstein come up with, it allows him to create the monster. It allows him to spend time in charnel houses or burial tombs and graveyards. It allows him to have the relationship that he does with Henry Clerval. All these things, I think, matter. The third trait is that Romanticism shuns civilization and seeks unspoiled nature. Unspoiled nature, so when we're on Mont Blanc, when we're outside, when Victor Frankenstein is away from Ingolstadt, when he's back at home, he's inspired. He seems less driven and less worried about the monster, about science, about these different things working on him as an individual. So you want to make sure that you understand the third trait, that Romanticism shuns civilization and seeks unspoiled nature. Mary Shelley picks this intentionally. Your job is to go through in different parts of the novel. And when I say different parts, I mean the 3 different sections of the novel. Walton's section, which we start with and ultimately end with. Victor Frankenstein's section, which is number 2. The monsters section, which starts in chapter 11, in the middle of the novel. So again, you've got your details there. The fourth major characteristic that I want you to pay attention to, and we'll talk more about this on Thursday and Friday and into the next week, that Romanticism finds beauty in exotic locales. Beauty in exotic locales. This is outside. This is away from Ingolstadt. This is away from Geneva. It's when Victor Frankenstein, when he's all forlorn and upset that Henry Clerval has died, that he's wandering through the Alps. He ends up in Scotland in a hut, and he's having these different reflections as he's out in nature. So again, finding beauty in exotic locales is incredibly important for this character. So those are the 4 major characteristics that I think at least we start Frankenstein with. I'll add 3 or 4, potentially 5 more as we go. Pretty good examples in the book are there to show you how Romanticism developed with these characteristics. Your job is to go through and say, okay, I understand that trait number 1 from this lecture or from class is that Romanticism values feeling and intuition over reason. Where's Elizabeth driven by intuition instead of reason? Where is Victor Frankenstein driven by his creativity, his love for nature? And I think importantly, where does that go wrong for Victor Frankenstein? Where, excuse me, where does he screw up in that process? When does his pursuit of unnecessary knowledge become so critical a mistake that he can't turn back? Now, plenty of examples exist in the novel, and when you get to your paper, when you get to your test, you're going to show me that you understand and you remember these different examples. So this is another supplement that I think will help you, at least in preparation for your summer reading, preparation for your initial essay, if you go through. Now, there's some difficulties. I can't get this video to play on my iPad because it's designed on my PC. It's using Logitech software. So I have a problem with it showing on a Mac computer. Now, this allows you to look at it in the library. I'm sure many of you can download this to your smartphone. So I think there's lots of opportunity for you to view these, to use them for your benefit in the class. So with that, I'm going to end this particular presentation and post it to Moodle so that you have a study guide to help you in the process. Good night.